So now I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Dave Milan. Just in case you haven't been paying attention to how Maine works, I think there are over 450 towns and cities in Maine, and that's where a lot of the important work gets done that shapes our collective future. So many of the faculty and students who work with the Mitchell Center focus some of their efforts on building productive collaborations with municipal partners to understand the challenges and opportunities they're facing and to find ways to combine our respective knowledge and know-how to create a sustainable future. Just as one example of that, way back we had a student, Karen Hutchins-Bielik, whose entire PhD dissertation involved a survey of over 2,500 municipal officials in Maine, especially to focus on what kind of partnerships work for them when they're working with the university. So that was super helpful for guiding the work we've done ever since. Dave Milan is one of those Mainers, at least who seems to me like he's done pretty much every job you can do in Maine, and he's made an enormous difference wherever he's worked. He grew up in Bucksport, spent 26 years in law enforcement, after which he was recruited to help lead Bucksport's economic development right around the time their paper mill closed down in 2014. And we often, some of the students and faculty in the Mitchell Center talk about the need to create resilient strategies when we're thinking about sustainability challenges. And I got to tell you, when your paper mill closed down, that's a time to draw upon important lessons of resilience, which, having talked to Dave a number of times, I can tell you he's very good at. He's now the director of the Office of Community Development in Orono, and not surprisingly, given that role, he also has a lot of interactions with UMaine faculty, with students and staff. And in my conversations with him, I've come away with a lot of valuable insights about ways we can work together with Orono and other Maine communities. So I'm going to let him tell the rest of the story. The title of his talk is Unkicking the Can, How Community Development Can Make a Difference Now. Take it away, Dave.
So thank you, David. Very nice introduction. As Dave said, my name is Dave Milan, and I am the director of the Office of Community Development for the town of Orono. Well, David and I were discussing a paper, Rebuilding the Ivory Tower, that he wrote along with Linda Silka. I offered some real-world development examples that were validating their own claim that transformational change could provide greater solutions to urgent global issues. With Unkicking the Can down the road, I want to talk about how the value in collaboration and inclusion from non-traditional partners can provide fulfilling and unprecedented results. And making sure that I'm getting everything working right here on our Zoom world. Over the past 40 plus years of working with the public, I've learned many lessons. After transitioning from a long law enforcement career to economic development, I quickly learned that there are actually a lot of really nice people who live in the community. Previously, they were not the ones that occupied much of my time. I was asked many times, as it must have been a big change going from law enforcement into economic development, and I would share with people how solving problems was not a unique thing to one profession, but rather it could go across many boundaries. As I grew into the economic development role, I learned that many developers, homeowners, businesses, they were running into a lot of siloed services within municipal government. This created frustration among those who you were encouraging to actually invest in your community. But the reality of how the municipalities work is that police departments tend to want to deal with police issues. Public Works tends to want to deal with road-related issues. Fire department folks tend to want to deal with, well, they kind of deal with keeping their fire truck shiny. That's the police versus fire thingy there that I have to throw in when I get the opportunity. But the economic development department must navigate through all of the departments to resolve challenges that are different for every project. The amazing thing that I've realized over time was that when I included all of the departments in my projects, they were the most successful projects for the developer and as well for the community. I learned that a wastewater treatment operator are some of the smartest folks I've ever had the opportunity to work with. They were able to identify affordable real-world solutions for pretreatment when I was courting a seafood processing plant that would bring dozens of new jobs into an area that needed those new jobs. Later on, I began looking outwards for technical assistance on projects that had challenges outside of the expertise of the many municipal departments. With an onslaught of food manufacturing businesses throughout eastern Maine, I quickly became a regular visitor of UMaine and all of the individual highly valuable assets located there. It was not a complete surprise to me to see that they were silo-oriented as well. But I was amazed that I would be having a conversation with one department on campus only to learn that they had no idea that another department even existed, let alone who to contact within the department. This was my introduction to the difference between academic research and professional research. Let me say, these are in industry terms and in no means suggest that academic research is something less than professional. Academic research is defined as a systematic investigation into a problem or situation where the intention is to identify facts and or opinions that will assist in solving the problem or dealing with the situation. Also, academic or scholarly research writing worries more about methodology as it needs to be scientifically validated. It generally circulates within the academy and has an objective stance, clearly states the importance of the topic, and is managed with sufficient detail so that other academic researchers or scholars may also try to replicate those same results. Whereas professional research writing is more focused on the use of the information received and is less worried about methodology. And even validation seems to be natural. It uses particular language to communicate information that is easily understood by its target audience. And it may be managed to inform, to instruct people, to persuade, to debate, to stimulate, or even to encourage, actions. Abraham Maslow wrote in his in Psychology of Science, I suppose it is tempting if the only tool you have is a hammer, is to treat everything as if it were a nail. When you have one way of looking at things and you aren't looking at it from multiple ways, you're kind of bound to end up in a certain with a certain answer or destination. Within professional research, the words cross-disciplinary, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and even transdisciplinary are used interchangeably. These words describe distinctly different ways of harnessing the power of disciplinary expertise. It is understandable that these two different researchers might look at the world through different lenses, but I contend that these two disciplines enhance the ability to solve real-world problems together much more efficiently and successfully than separately. Consider a cross-disciplinary approach where a panel of experts drawn from different fields each apply the tools of their own field to a problem that has been externally framed. Or multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary research happens when researchers from different fields come together to pose a challenge that wouldn't be possible in isolation. One example is the highly transparent optical fibers that underpin intercontinental telecommunication networks. I like that phrase because it's higher than I am. The Bangor region is located midway between two main underwater fiber highways. One's outside of Boston, one in Halifax, Nova Scotia, that connect the United States and Europe's financial network. And our location here in the Bangor region, central Maine, our location provides a redundancy that is extremely important to the secure high-speed data transfers associated with the financial world. But I digress. That's the economic development director in me, always pointing out the strengths of our region. Back to the point is that the knowledge creation that made this technology possible involved glass chemists, optical physicists, and communication engineers coming together to articulate the possible and develop the shared language required to make it a reality. When different fields go on this type of journey together over decades, new fields are born, they're created. But what about the questions we don't know how to ask? Because without knowledge of another field, we simply don't know what's possible. This line of reasoning leads us into the domain of transdisciplinary research. Research that requires input from multiple fields and creates new questions. While I was working with a UMaine student inventor who had invented a lightweight, high amperage battery that charges and discharges rapidly in order to create tremendous power needed to win a car audio competition. I asked the inventor if he had ever spoken with an aerospace engineer about his design. I knew that large jets require standalone power units that have to be physically connected to the aircraft when the engine is to be started. These systems aren't installed on the aircraft simply because they're too heavy. So I put him together with an engineer from a local aviation company to see if there was a value to a completely different industry than what it was actually designed for. Those conversations went on for weeks, months, as they were looking at things that it was never created for, but there was going to be benefits that could come out of it from something in a completely different direction. Almost a year later, during a conversation on campus, I learned that UMaine had an aerospace engineering program. I didn't know it beforehand. If I had, that would have been very helpful to be able to put interdisciplinary fields together to research the opportunities. Think about how all of these different pieces could work together not only for a common question, but together will create new questions and new answers in a vine of directions. Many years ago, I started, I'm almost 20 years now. Next year will be 20 years in the economic development side. So this is truly my second career. But many, many years ago, I brought a client to the Sensory Evaluation Center at UMaine so they could learn more about the services this facility could provide to them as they were creating a new food product in Eastern Maine. On this particular day that I was there, research was being conducted at the center on what was the best color for tortilla chips. It was a great example for my client as it demonstrated an ability to receive useful information to questions that, quite frankly, he didn't even know to ask. Later, I began wondering what other kinds of information could be available to this client about a product And so I reached out to the UMaine staff that I had met that day. The answer a decade ago was that they just dealt with the science of food. No one had ever even thought of to ask the question about color psychology or why the blue chip was favored over other colors. They just knew that the sensory research that was completed, we found out that blue was the best color chip for customers of tortilla chips. Could a psychological science intern work with a business administration student and a food science specialist to create a unique team approach for a transdisciplinary project? Think about the things that could be done if these unconventional teammates were put together and asked whole new questions that that currently aren't being developed. I can talk a lot about transdisciplinary connections, but rather than simply talking about it today, I want to try a little experiment of my own. This is definitely much easier to do in person, but I want to take a shot at it with a Zoom disciplinary connection. I'm going to show you a normal, everyday picture, and I ask for each of you to take a look at the picture and then write in the chat what you think is going on in the picture. And second, tell me what makes you say that, what makes you think that way. So we're going to try this and see how it's going to work. Tell me what's going on in this picture, and secondly, what do you see that makes you say that? Take a few minutes, look at the picture. It's not a trick story. Tell me what you think is actually going on. And when you do, write it into the chat box. Tell me what you think. I've used this picture before, and I've gotten I've gotten the whole variety of different answers. So I'm seeing that that it's a kid carrying his lunch and walking on crates because the ground is flooded. Very specific. That's what it's doing. He's walking on boxes to make sure he doesn't get wet. The floor is flooded. They're using crates to create access. Good job, Jared. The floor is lava, and if you step on the floor, you don't get seconds. It's a fun game. 2. A boy is walking on crates across a flooded street. The boy is keeping his feet dry, avoiding some sort of flood. The kid is walking on boxes, maybe for exercise. Maybe there is water on the floor. Child's walking across milk crates to keep from getting wet. It would appear to be a child walking on crates carrying food due to water. The presence of floods are so common that it appears normal. Great point. That's the thank you, Anthony. That you're given the explanation as to why you think this is because of the presence of floods. Student in a flooded school walks across crates to avoid getting wet. What makes you? Why is it a student in a flooded school? What makes you think it's a student in a flooded school? Kid crossing to class after getting a snack. It looks like a little boy is utilizing plastic crates that have been placed strategically in order to travel from place to place in a flooded area. Child crossing room with food in hand, walking on beverage crates. A good example of flood resilience. So I have used this photo before, and someone had mentioned that it was a student, and that the reason why they felt it was a student was because of the way he was dressed. That this looked more like a school uniform, and therefore he was either leaving to go to school, or it was a student that is somehow related to as a dealing with school. Based on his attire, exactly, he's likely a church, service, or school. It's the uniform that's giving you the idea. The flood conditions may either be a school or work. He is likely not the only one using uniform carrying lunch. Maybe he's just stylish. Absolutely. He is definitely styling. I'll give him that one, number one. And the quick answer is that the caption to this particular photo that was used it states that it is a child uses milk crates to cross a street in Bogota, Colombia, where recent heavy rains had caused flooding. What's going on in this picture exercise is used to demonstrate that different people look at things differently. And when we can encourage different people to look at a common problem, an issue, a challenge, you're going to get the best of multiple forms of input in order to be able to to get that kind of a result. So that's great, awesome. I give you all. This is my first Zoom one I've ever been able to use this one for, so I give you an A for participation. We have one more that I would ask the same thing. What's going on in the photo? Tell me what you think is going on, but equally as important, tell me why. What is it that you see that making you have that opinion that you have? Take a look at it. It's not a trick photo. It just is a world photo that I would use to depict something. And you can look at the surroundings, who's included, who isn't included. It tells you what time of year it is. What do you think is happening here, and equally, why is it? Sheepdog corralling sheep. Taking sheep to market or shearing in the fall. This is a shepherd and his flock and his dog. I read a sheep herder is crossing the road with sheep as cars are waiting for them to cross. Person is standing in the road with a flock of sheep and his dog. Shepherd moving flock obstructing the road. Man is not really dressed like a farmer. However, it looks to be a shepherd with his sheepdog herding the sheep. So someone took the time to look at that and said, okay, he doesn't really look like your normal farmer, but he certainly is. It looks like he's got something to do with the sheep that's there. Sheep are blocking the road. It seems like the person might be the shepherd, blocking the road on purpose. That may be a question. Sheep are blocking cars from passing on a forest road. The herder with dog and sheep that is blocking traffic in the fall. The shepherd is protesting. Ding, 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 ding. All right, New Zealand youth and his dog protest breakup of death cab by blocking only road into town. The sheep are crossing the road. Their shepherdess is standing to direct them. The shepherd is waiting to move the herd. Dog sitting down indicates they are waiting on someone or something else. The person who I would guess is a shepherd with his dog appears to be watching something. This is the kind of things that you want to be able to engage with when you have a whole different forms of opinions and ideas. You know, you want all the ideas to come in so that you can, you know, you may not even, it may not even help with the particular problem or the challenge that you're facing, but it causes a light to come on something else that you're already looking at. So very good. Looks like a flock of sheep spread across the road, possibly blocking traffic. Dog doesn't look like a sheepdog. It's a shepherd. Very good. I am very impressed. The caption for this particular photo states, sheep block the road in northern Germany near a town that is to store nuclear waste that originated in Germany and was being sent back from France where it was treated. There have been vigorous protests along the route. The key to this is that we all look at things, you know, through our own lenses. And like the pictures, a team can bring different perspectives to the conversation. Scientific research can study whether the cycle of weather is changing on Earth. That is extremely important research. And the professional research associated with the development of Ayers Island here in Orono is connected at the hip. As an island in the Penobscot River, the future use of this former paper and textile mill is heavily influenced by the impact of sea rise and flood events. We always enjoy our experiences that we have here with the UMaine engineering students who take on our everyday challenges with a capstone project. We've been able to get a tremendous amount of research done in real world problems, real world issues that we're working with in the form of a capstone and create some answers. The redevelopment of Ayers Island here in Orono will require the replacement of a deteriorated bridge that is currently unsafe to use. But we were throwing the students a curveball when we asked for them to research how the future water levels would impact which type of bridge construction would be the best long-term investment. For students who have been learning about what and how of bridge design, they were now learning about the why. Their final report helped us understand how the impact of weather science was influencing urban planning. Instead of kicking the can down the road by developing Ayers Island without research and simply forcing future municipal leaders to address whatever challenges are created decades later, we have the ability to influence the redevelopment with the future in mind. This will save money, it will save the environmental impact, and quite frankly, a lot of heartache as that's developed. That's my the highlights of my position and the work that we've been able to do with the university. I would like to have the opportunity to hear from you as to what challenges are you seeing, what things are you experiencing that can help with a larger collaboration. So again, I'm open for questions. My timing is about where I want it to be, to give plenty of time, Linda, to ask questions and engage folks who are participating.
What?
And we will unshare that.
What a wonderful, wonderful talk. Just really exciting. And as people want to ask questions, I've got some things here from sort of what I heard people saying. But David, it's my understanding that you're comfortable if people want to unmute themselves and ask you a question directly.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just so very, very interesting. One of the first questions I think people may want to ask is, how can we work with you? How can we learn from you? A question that just came up is, are there ways teams of students from different fields could work with you to advance things?
Absolutely. I would say whether it not only with it is with us, but I think that reach out to the municipalities that you, whether if it's a student, you know, the student that you municipality that you came from, there may be a challenge that you have grown up at, that you've seen, you know, in your hometown, or it could be in your community that you're living now. If you're in the Orono area, we certainly we meet with students on a regular basis when they're to try to help them fine tune whether it's a capstone project or other things. I found that it can be something as simple as getting involved with the municipality. We have lots of committees and organizations within a community. If you're working on climate change and you are you know, equality issues, wide ranges of things, get involved, and whether it's individually or with a student, and you'll find that the municipalities are looking for new opinions, looking for different points of view. We get the best product when we get a bunch of different minds together, and they start feeding off each other, because they'll start creating questions that other people didn't think of. Just like the sheep picture in the road, when someone makes a comment that it might be this, you thought, I saw it, I hadn't thought of it that way, it might be this way, and you start creating more questions. So I have never met a municipality that was not receptive to whether it was an individual or whether it was a group of folks that wanted to interact about something that was important to them.
So one of thank you very much. So one of the questioners said, this is just so interesting, and that you've been in law enforcement and economic development, and you're talking about academia. People don't necessarily talk the same language. What have you found works to bring people together when they could just end up staring at each other like, what did you just say?
Well, I think the easy answer is beer, but I'm not sure that was the answer that you were necessarily looking for. I would say that be inquisitive, ask questions. I like to be around. It's easy for me to be around people smarter than me, because there's a lot of people smarter than me, and I tell my boss every day, it's not what I know, it's my Rolodex that's valuable, because I can call someone to ask questions. And I tend to be kind of an information sponge. I like to know different things. Not only do I like to know different things, but I like to know you know, why it's different, how different things happen. I may go a little bit off base here, Linda, to answer the question is that I attended the FBI National Academy when I was in law enforcement, and when you were going into the academy, you had to kind of specialize in particular things, different things, whether it was finances or supervision, and in mine was, I spent my time at the FBI Academy working on interview interview strategies and nonverbal communication. And what I learned is that if you want to get a bad guy to confess, the first thing you need to do is make the bad guy comfortable. Make him feel free to be able to talk to you. And so I think that's my wife of 40 years will tell you that that's probably one thing that I've mastered rather well, is the ability to put someone at ease, not make them feel threatened, not make them feel belittled or that their opinion doesn't matter. So I think that the way to do it is that you create an atmosphere that people feel comfortable in voicing their opinion and engaging in different views. And if you let people know right up front that not only are different opinions valuable, but they're encouraged, then you'll be much more successful in getting interactions. As I said, I don't know everything. I know very far from it, but I usually can figure out what questions to ask to get people going. And again, I find that whether it's in an academic setting or whether it's in a non-academic setting, I think that there are ways that you can, pull. There's commonality, whether it's beer or soccer, or there's usually something that you can talk about.
In when I was working down at UMass Lowell, and we were bringing together different groups from Cambodia and Laos, and people would say, you can't bring these people together. There's nothing in common. This isn't going to work. Get people talking about their kids.
Exactly.
And you find, kind of what's going to work. One of the things that people were really interested in terms of your fascinating points was things we're in a time of real change now, and change isn't unusual. But so you're planning for one thing, and how do you sort of balance that? So let's say that you're planning for economic prosperity, and then all the public health problems come up now during a pandemic. So how do you deal with that, and how do you deal with that within a partnership, for example?
Oh, that's a great a great question. I will begin by saying I think that we're all just, as we say in my office, we're all tired of being tired. And I think that when this pandemic first came about, our town council, the first people that they reached out to was the fire chief to talk about public health, and how can we make not only our employees but the citizens in town and students, whether it was the university going to shut down or not shut down. We looked at how do we deal with the public health issues. The second thing that they asked was, Dave, we want to talk to you about what's this going to mean to our economy and what's going to happen to the businesses in town. And I think that the if there is a quick answer, which there isn't, but if I were going to give a quick answer, I would say is that the need to identify how valuable each of them are, and that they both, it's not a one or the other answer. It's not a one wins, one loses, one survives, one dies. It's how do we intermingle those things together. And what I immediately began doing here in Orono, was not myself and my staff, was we started reaching out to businesses to find out what the impact was, what their immediate impact was for as businesses were required to close down. We were talking to property owners who have for our particular case in Orono, is we have a high number of student housing complexes. So how does that impact? And those are, quite frankly, they're big taxpayers in our community. So we looked at how we needed to be ready to pivot to solve the challenges. And I would say since March, when I say we're tired of being tired, we're finding solutions to challenges every single day. And again, we look at not, and I think the whole region is doing this. We're not unique to this. I've seen it happen all over our region. Is that the municipalities are cognizant of the fact that this is a public health pandemic, but also that there needs to be an economy when this too passes. There needs to be something there. We can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And so we need to be able to find ways to do that. And so we have been, so far, we're successful in finding solutions, whether, we created a 0% loan program, for businesses that was having a negative impact by COVID. And can that 0% loan program with time, 6 months time to before they even had to start paying it off, could we find ways to could that solve one of their problems? We had companies that were simply trying to find. Pivot is the word of 2020. Everyone has had to pivot. We've all had to change how we do things. Now, the good news, the good news, and I'm not sure I would ever use good news and COVID in the same sentence, but the good news from this experience is that so many businesses have been forced to pivot and learn new ways of doing things that, quite frankly, I am confident that they will stick with the rest of their career, and they will continue to work on how do I do the same thing in a different way. And there are plenty of examples that are showing how this pivoting has actually in a very painful way sometimes has forced business owners to look at different ways of providing whatever it is, the service or product that they have.
Oh, that's just great. And you mentioned in your comment just now about examples, and your talk was filled with these intriguing examples. One of those examples was the Ayers Island and the challenges there, and the UMaine engineering students doing capstone projects. And one of the things that some people talk about is how hard it is to have the skills to know sort of how to set things up for students, how to have capstones happen, how to get what you need out of it, and how to make sure the students get what they need out of it. How'd you learn to do that?
Communication. It is a. My wife and I have 4 children, 11 grandchildren. I would say that you learn to communicate, and I think that no project goes as well as you had hoped it would. And when you look back on any project that you review afterwards, I will offer that anyone to disagree with me, that communication will be the answer that you'll get within the first 10 words. Is that it's really important to know what it is that what they want to get out of it, and you need to know that right up front. It's not just about I have a challenge. I'm trying to figure out how to redevelop a 63-acre parcel in the middle of the Penobscot River that has the bridge I can't use anymore. What I need to be able to do is, hey, there's a challenge here. And as I said, I think we kind of threw them a little bit of a curve when we asked them. We didn't want to know just what kind of bridge should we build there, but we said, look, we want you to think about what does sea rise mean, and what is the levels of the river, both historically as well as for the future. what is that going to mean for the future of that island? And quite frankly, I was working with the property owner who owns the island, and it was kind of going in one direction on how the redevelopment of that project could work. But as a result of the capstone, and we learned about, that we were hitting 100-year flood rates more than once every 100 years, and that things were getting worse, not better. It really changed the direction and the type of development that could occur on the island. And I can't thank them enough for the quality work that they did as part of that project, because we could have very easily continued in the direction we were going. And 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, they're dealing with whole different problems that, quite frankly, we can predict them now. So maybe we should do it a different way. And so it was tremendously valuable. And I don't know, maybe it's the grandfather in me, but I was very proud to watch these students getting through there. I'm not a professor, nor do I play one on television, but I can tell you that I can equally get as proud of these students when I'm watching the work that they did, and I know the quality of the work that was going into the project. This wasn't something that they zinged together on a Sunday night that was due Monday morning. This was something that a lot of work was done, and there was a lot of consultation, and quite frankly, they were calling us and saying, okay, we're finding this, we think we might go that, and I would give them the direction to go, and they would go off on it. But it was it's really it's a fun experience. Can I have a question in here that I'm looking at, if that's okay, Linda, that asks, what are the priorities for municipal infrastructure to promote economic development? Transportation, wastewater, energy, broadband. The answer is yes. And everything is, the whole idea behind, none of this stuff is sexy. Public transportation, wastewater treatment plants, how to successfully clean water and put it back and respect the Penobscot River. How do you create energy, not only sustainable energy, but affordable energy? From an economic development standpoint, it's great to have renewable energy, but it's got to be affordable energy as well, or we're losing those types of investments to other areas of the country. And broadband is probably the one thing that you're starting to see it probably in the last 5 years, and I hope to see it even more. Is that broadband as an infrastructure should be the expectations for broadband should be equal to having town water and town sewer, just those are basic infrastructure needs that you have. Broadband needs to be added to that. And when you're looking at other projects, if I have a large project coming into the community, we look at what the impact on the municipal and the wastewater treatment plant, and the system may need to be increased as a result of that particular investment or that project coming in. We really need to be doing the same thing with broadband. And at one time, Maine was at the forefront. We were number one with broadband, and then everybody caught up and just flew by us. And so one of the things that I'm learning as I continue to grow as an economic development director is that people nowadays, with an aging community, or aging people population, there's more and more jobs that can be done anywhere, and people can choose to live wherever they want to live. I was talking with an engineering company here that opened a company here in Orono, and I asked him why they were coming to Orono, and he said because that's where the engineers are, and they wanted to be, and engineers don't have to They don't have to be on the ground all the time. They could be working in Orono on a project that's in Oregon, and they may go there twice a year. So what's important to the employers is that of quality of place, is that you have to have a place where people want to live, and they want to raise their family. And that's where they're going to, and for them to be able to do their job there, broadband is going to be the paramount. So I think as an entire state, we really have to look at the investments in broadband and how we can create these infrastructure thoroughfares.
And if you, just to follow up on that, if you had student teams like engineering, and they were, you're imagining the Ayers Island again, do you have a feeling that could all be done by internet? Their involvement with you, their thinking about the problem, or what do you see as the challenges of doing things that way?
Again, I would say that I think that one of the things we talked about pivoting. I hear on a regular basis, I'm zoomed out. I'm tired of Zoom meetings, and I'm probably guilty of it, myself at times as well. But again, one of the things that I find that that's been very helpful is that it does allow us to have face-to-face community, conversations. Excuse me. We can have those kind of conversations that are useful. We can share data. There's ways to be able to do it remotely that a year ago we would have done this. So again, I think we take these things that we've learned during these difficult times and we use them when times get even better. That I see no reason why we couldn't have the opportunity to have the conversations with students or academics who are working on their projects. The more we can communicate, the better we are. So if you have to do it remotely, I'll take on another Zoom meeting.
Oh, that's great. Did you see any other questions in the chat that you wanted to make sure that we covered? There are lots of interesting ones that were there. And we also, in the chat, Ruth has kindly put in your email address so that people can follow up with you in terms of things.
Yeah, I just real quickly, Betsy asked a good question as to how do you avoid falling into the trap of just trying to, put the thumb in the dike. And as what we use the word, we're masters at whack-a-mole. Is that it seems like every time we have to redefine how things are how we're doing things. Every time we try to do it a different way as we pivot, we fix one problem and another one pops up over here. And when that one gets fixed, it creates another problem. And so the question is that what we have tried to do, and I think rather successfully, is every municipality creates a comprehensive plan. It's a plan that's created by the citizens of the community over multiple years. It usually takes about 2 years to create a comp plan. And that comp plan is supposed to direct the community for the next 10 years as to what the community wants to be. And I think when times get tough and we're trying to, again, put our finger in the dam to create small holes, we always go back to the comp plan and say, what is it that we're really trying to achieve, and let the comp plan direct us as to where we need to be. And so that's worked really well for us. Is that rather than going off in this multiple directions, stick to the comp plan. And the comp plan, I learned that early on in my economic development career. I've learned from some of the best from planners, and Evan Rickert and others, that follow the comp plan, and that will minimize the scattered shot of moving forward.
What a great talk. you hit on so many important points, the silos that we need to overcome, the ways we need to work together, the challenges of doing that, and how important it is to keep learning in order to be able to do that. And you used fun things like pictures to help us see that, and to see how important it is to get out of our own way of viewing things, not to necessarily lose it, but to understand other ones, because that's how we're going to solve problems. And by bringing together science and other kinds of information. What a great talk. What a really great talk. David Hart, do you have any last words you want to say?
Dave, that was wonderful. Just echoing Linda's comments. I've been writing down a bunch of stuff. I want to follow up with you, and I can kind of see that there are a lot more opportunities, not just in Orono, but I saw folks from other areas, lots of great chances for more collaboration and lots of lessons we can learn from you, and hopefully vice versa.
Oh, most definitely. It's been, I enjoy, you've brought me out of my shell for these talks, and I've enjoyed, participating in many of these talks myself. But as I said, when I began, I wanted to give you, credit also, is that, again, what started this was your talk, your paper on rebuilding the ivory tower. I think was spot on, and I truly I give kudos to you and Linda for that work.
Well, we got a ways to go, so let's do it together. Thank you, Dave, and thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, Linda. Great job.
Pleasure.
Always.
Pleasure. See you all soon.